You are listening to the Bright Life Podcast, all about ways to stay inspired, chase your dreams, and find more gratitude in the highs and lows of the journey. I'm your host, Jessica Johnson. I'm a business owner, a part-time digital nomad, a self-growth junkie, a believer in other big-hearted women, and am all about sharing tips, tricks, lessons learned, and encouragement so we can all live our biggest, brightest lives. You ready? Let's do this. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. Today, I have a good friend, one of my mastermind sisters, Anna Rapp here, and she is a business mentor, a mindset coach. She's a mama to two, and she's the founder of the Heart-Centered Entrepreneur podcast and community. She has so much to share around how to feel confident selling and to do so authentically and to be more visible, but to do it in a way that feels really good for you and true for your values. And so I wanted to just bring her on to talk about all of that and more with us, because I know so many of you are early entrepreneurs. Maybe you've started something or you have a dream on your heart and you want to have that confidence and the ability to do something really in your way. So Anna, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here.
Jess, I could literally not be more excited to talk with you this morning.
Well, so maybe just let's dive into like the good stuff, right? Because you have these amazing programs around selling and selling with heart too. So do you want to just tell us more about how you came up with that, a little bit about your journey there?
Yes, of course. I would say it started because I hated selling. I felt icky selling. I wanted to die. And I remember telling my husband at the time, like, I feel like when I'm selling, I'm like scamming people. Mm-hmm. And he was like, are you scamming people? I'm like, no, like literally I am like, my parents joke, they wish they could have like taken away some of my conscience as a child because I was so like, I would apologize for other people. Like, I'm just like hyper ethical. Like when I started coaching, I would Google like, is it ethical to coach? Like, you know, all that stuff. So it was really an evolution for me figuring out I loved coaching. Like I love what I did, but really figuring out the skill of sales and how to communicate what I did, how to hold space for someone that had questions about what I did. All of it just felt like a foreign language to me.
Yes. Oh, I feel like so many people can resonate with that. And that's probably what makes you an amazing coach too, is because you do care so much and you do have that conscience, but then also how to put yourself out there. And how did you make that shift then from selling, feeling like you're scamming people to feeling like almost more of a service lens?
So like now I literally love sales. I'm obsessed with sales calls. Like they make me so excited. And it's one of my favorite things to coach women on because I realized that sales was this bridge between like it was the thing that would help me get people to work with and change their, like, I knew it was like the bridge, right? Like, oh, like I was villainizing like sales is bad because I had bad experiences with people selling to me. But instead I realized like, oh no, I remember Googling like, how do I make money in my business without selling? And instead I had to realize like, oh no, it's not selling that's the villain. It's just that I'm not selling in a way that feels aligned with me. And selling is that bridge that helps get money to me, that helps get clients that I want to help to me. Like, I think I just had to learn to stop villainizing it and start figuring out a way to do it in a way that felt authentic to me.
Yes, right. Because you're right. Without the selling, you can't help anyone. They can't find you. Their lives can't change from working with you. And so that I think is such a key though, what you said about finding a way to do it that's in line with you, because I totally agree. I think we all have this idea that it's not all of us, but a lot of us come in with this idea that like you have to be pushy or you have to like overcome objections and force people into buying
or when trick really people.
Yes. Yeah. When it's like, it's about finding your way of selling that feels good for you, and like fits your personality. And so how does one even begin to do that?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I love this question. I think first it's like just owning that sales doesn't have to be the bad guy. It's almost like how, like, when we're trying to like get healthier in our body, right? We need to exercise and we need to find a way to exercise that aligns with us, right? I'm obsessed with like bar and Pilates, right? I hate running. I just do.
Same.
But one of my girlfriends loves running. It like gives
Yeah.
her life. So that's her way of getting to a healthy body, right? And so I think
Yeah.
same thing with sales, right? There's so many different ways that we can sell, but it's just about like finding that way and being willing to try a few, right? Like I had kind of tried running for a little bit. I may have even bought like one of those like little waist things that has the water bottles on your hips. Like
like, I will
tried.
love this.
I gave it an effort. I downloaded the app, but I think I had to be like, so often we're afraid to try anything because we're trying to find the right thing instead of just being like, I'm going to try to do a webinar. How did that go? I'm going to try to do a challenge. How did that, like being willing to try different sales things until you find the one that's like, oh my gosh, like this so fits with my personality. Right.
Yes, right. And I love what you said too, even just about questioning those beliefs that we have of like, sales is bad, or there's no way of selling that feels good to me. And it's almost just looking at things is like, is that really completely true? Or is there a better way to do this? And if you do the webinar and it's not your thing, it's like, okay, are webinars not my thing, or how I went about it? What about it didn't feel good?
Yes. It's so true, right? Because even think about like the running analogy, like maybe it could have been that like, okay, maybe it wasn't running. Maybe I could have found a way to run that felt good for me if I tried hard enough. You know what I mean? Like maybe I need to be a jogger or a fast walker. So I think like, I love that nuance of like, even within the sales strategy, figuring out how to like fine tune that. Right.
Mm-hmm. And another piece that you said in the beginning that I love and want to touch on is almost when people do have doubts, because a lot of times when people come to you, they probably have questions or they're scared, right? They've been thinking about something maybe even for years, but it's that first leap is always scary. And so do you have any thoughts on how you hold the space for someone to have those fears and doubts and share them with you, but also not you then take them on or almost feel intimidated by them, but actually hold the space to maybe move someone through them and feel good about that?
Oh, like you just dropped so many wisdom bombs, like in that question, Jess. Like it's so true, right? I think the goal there, we think like when we hear the word like overcome objections, we think like we have to convince or solve or fix instead of like literally, in my view, a sales call is just a safe space to help your potential client make their best decision, right? They have a lot on their mind. They're overwhelmed. They're trying to weigh through several things. And so it literally is that like helping them, okay, like you tell me what's going on right now. This is what I have to offer. Do we feel like this is a fit? Like it's almost like being willing to be in that messy middle of together exploring where they're at and like what they most need.
Yes, I love that, how you said that, of creating a safe space where they can bring their honest concerns. You can also bring your honest viewpoint, having expertise in this of what might really help them, and then let both people feel good about it at the end of the day. It's like everyone left everything on the table so that they could truly make an honest, informed decision. No one's withholding anything.
I mean, quote that on Instagram. Yes. Like, I love how you say it's so true, right? Because I think at the end of the day, it is their decision. So we swing one way or the other, right? We either like make it so much their decision that we don't even advocate and stand up and say, you know what, actually, based on the problems you were sharing, what I have to offer is actually an amazing fit for you. Should you decide to do it, right? So I think we forget to do that, or we feel like we have to make the decision for them instead of really letting them stand in their power and really asking them, do you think this is a fit? Like, do you want to do this? Like, what is your intuition saying right now?
Yes. How long after you started doing these practices did you really start to see that shift of feeling excited and confident and really in love with the sales process?
Oh my gosh. I think like it was actually pretty early on because I started realizing like, ooh, again, like this is the gateway. This isn't a villain. This is the power play. Like
Yeah.
this is the thing that's going to help me help more humans and make an F ton of money so that I
Yeah.
can like live out all my desires. Like instead I went from like villainizing it to like making it the hero of my life and business. And I think that's why I
Yeah.
feel so passionate about helping other women sell is because I'm like, it's almost like I'm like, it's this food that no one likes. And I'm like, but they haven't really tried it. And I'm like, no, really, you have to, it's like, you have to try this because once you try it, you're going to love it. And so it takes some convincing, right?
Yeah. And for coaches or anyone interested in the coaching space too, something about what you were saying really stood out to me, that it's almost like a taste of the coaching experience where you like want someone who can hold the space with you and confront the things that you're afraid of and
Yes.
almost challenge you on them too, right? A coach isn't that helpful if they're never helping you see outside your own limits.
Yes.
So even in that sense, it's almost like honoring the work that you're doing and saying, let me just give you a taste of what life could be. Yes, in this sales conversation, but this is what it's going to be like to work with me too.
100%, right? It's bringing like who you are to the sales call. So they get like a little taste of that. I think even, I know a lot of your audience is like done for you babes, right? And I think even in that boat, I always tell my clients that are done for you service providers, like how powerful it is to use coaching skills, even as a service provider, to stand up as a leader, to challenge, to have an opinion. I love for the people that serve me in my business that are service providers, whether it's my designer or my copywriter or my VA or my COO, like I love when they hold space for me, when they challenge me, right? When they give their opinion, like I so value that.
Right. Yes, exactly. I love how that can really transcend all industries and be like, no matter the industry, you can show up to these calls in your power, in your expertise, in
Yes.
like trusting in your own value and rates and what you can deliver to for these brands. Like I'm always trying to think about it in terms of, people might be intimidated by saying their rate aloud, but think about the value that you're bringing to a business or brand who now saves hours of their day, or who has a better sales page or better graphics or whatever it may be. What is the real value of that compared to the one small hourly rate that someone pays? And I think as business owners, we start to see that really quickly once we get an amazing team on board.
The money that I pay my done for you service, it's like the best money I could spend in my whole life. You know what I mean? Like you said, because it saves that time. And I think like when you start to see, like for me, I always try to tell my clients, like when you're on a sales call with someone, like assume that they want to buy from you, assume that it's like yours to lose, almost in the sense of like, we think we had to convince someone, but I have this feeling like I'm dating right now, unfortunately, like I got divorced a few years ago. And so I'm like in a dating season. And I really try to believe that like, we always think like, what's the right thing to say? Or like, but I have this belief that like with the right man, I can't F it up. Like I don't have to have the perfect words. And I think the same thing like on sales calls with ideal clients, right? Like we don't always have to we don't have to get it perfect. Maybe we don't say the right thing or we're awkward, but like they're on the call because they want to be with us. They want to hear from us. They want to work with us, right?
Yes. And they're probably in love with your energy too, which goes back to even your first point of like your selling personality and what feels good to you is like, there's probably something where the words don't have to be perfect, but if the energy of that you bring is what they probably like in some way as well. So almost just like believing in yourself, like you don't have to do it perfectly because what you're already bringing to the table is why they're attracted to you in the beginning too.
It is so true. And it sounds so crazy. I remember someone told me this at the start of my business and I was like, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. But like the fact that really at the end of the day, people aren't just buying what you do for them, right? So as a done for you person, it's like the copy you're writing. As a coach, it's like the session they're buying. They're not just buying that deliverable, but they are buying your energy and your essence. And I was like, that's stupid. What? But now I'm like, oh my God, it's true. Right. So I have a question for you, Jess, right? Especially because you are a done for you, you are so good at the done for you work. Like what's a way, I feel like as a coach, it's fairly easy for me to like capture my essence on a sales call, but what tips would you give for like done for you providers in particular that are trying to like emulate their essence on a sales call? Like what does that look like when you're not a coach?
Well, what I was thinking of is, there's such a difference between working with, let's take copywriting as an example, because that's the
Yeah.
world that I'm in the most, but that's like, we've probably all worked with people who can technically do a job versus who are pleasant to work with and who are upbeat and can do and a joy to get on strategy calls with. And so I think that can be a little bit of that essence is like,
Yes.
yeah, technically a lot of people can maybe do the job, but there's a big difference between someone who does the job and is kind of a pain to work with or begrudging of the work or the deadlines versus someone who's like, I got it. Like they're always on time. It's always a joy for them to do it. Right. And so I think that's something that you can really bring to the sales calls as a writer, as a done for you service provider of like, people are looking that you can do the job, but they're also looking to see what it's going to be like to work with you and have you as their right-hand person supporting their business too.
I mean, I could not underscore that enough. I was just talking to my COO about this because we're hiring a new position in my business. And we really came to the conclusion that like, yes, we want the person we're hiring to have skills, but really that's like 30% of it. I think 70% of what we're looking for is someone that is a team player, someone that is going to meet deadlines, someone that has an attitude of like, wanting to learn, figure it out themselves. Like it sounds wild, but that is literally 70% of it.
Yes, right. And that should be encouraging to anyone who's like new to an industry. But
yes.
like if you can wow on your character traits and your work ethic, I 100% feel the same. I even hiring my own team, I really looked for someone who I thought this is the person I can train on like the details, but I like being around them. So that's a huge distinction. I don't think a lot of people realize can be a secret weapon, even if they're still learning and gaining experience in their actual skill set.
Which is so wild, right? Because I think especially as done for you, all of us, but I think especially done for you providers can have that imposter syndrome of like, I'm not a good writer yet. I'm not a good designer yet. I'm not, instead of like remembering it sounds wild, but like the people that are hiring you don't care that much about it. I don't care how much I have to train someone. I don't care how much someone has to Google. I don't care. Like that doesn't matter to me, right? That they're willing to. And most heart-centered women, that's natural. You don't have to like force yourself. Like it doesn't mean you have to be outgoing or extroverted or like you don't have to like fake your personality. It just means if you are a hard worker, if you are willing to try new things, it's just revealing that in the call, right?
So good. Oh, I love all of that. And so for anyone who's listening and who, wants to be out there and they are seeking to just put themselves out there more confidently, more authentically, because I think that's another thing you do really well is like, you can feel your personality in your social media posts and in, this podcast episode. Like, how does someone, do you have any advice for someone who wants to show up with all of who they are and sell from that place? Any thoughts on like how to feel more confident in that?
Yes.
long question. But
no. I'm not laughing at you. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at myself because yes, I have a really funny analogy. Do you want to hear it?
Yes, please.
I came to me and I was like, oh my God, like the universe like gives you an analogy and you're like, that's kind of embarrassing. I don't want to share it, but you probably should. Yeah. So like I never really had a problem being visible because I grew up overcoming a lot of my visibility blocks as a child because I did a lot of acting and performing. So like, I remember as a child, like having like clearing visibility blocks, like being sick to my stomach, getting on stage and like the things that my clients experience now, I almost like cleared when I was young,
Yeah.
But I have worked with literally hundreds of women on this. And so like, I get what it's like what I would say is like, be okay being nervous and put in the reps. Right. So the funny story is this guy that I'm dating right now, when we first started dating, I sent him like a voice memo on iPhone. Right. Of course, like I do podcasting. It's super easy for me to talk like this. Right. He sent me a voice memo back and he sounded so nervous. His voice was shaking. Oh. He was like, I've never sent a voice memo in my whole life. I'm 35 years old, but I'm going to try it. Right.
That's so cute. Especially to a pretty girl. He's like, oh gosh, the pressure.
But we've been memoing for a month. And I kid you not, this man sends me like 7-minute voice memos. He's so confident. Like, he sounds like a podcaster. I'm like, who are you? But because he was willing to, for a month, sound kind of silly trying, right?
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, like, that's it. Like, I think it's just being willing to like put in the reps and like for your first reel, be embarrassed and look silly, right? Like the first time you record a podcast, maybe your voice shakes, who gives an F? Like, it's being willing to put your ego at the door and put in the reps, because I think it's literally just that.
I 100% agree. I mean, even this podcast, I remember it took me like a year to get up the nerve to even do episode 1. And then now it's no big deal, right? It's every week. There's always something to say. But that's it for all the things in business that it's ever been. It's just like you show up and you do it scared, and then the fear lessens and lessens and lessens. And, there'll always be the next thing, but it's encouraging once you realize that's just a pattern and a cycle versus a reason to not do it or a stop sign.
Or like having to look, exactly. Or like feeling like I have to like not do it. There's something wrong with me, instead of like, no, I'm resilient. I can figure it out. This is not a big deal. I like keying in on our resilience instead of like creatively trying to like avoid discomfort at all costs.
Yes. Oh, it's so good. I mean, so many wisdom nuggets in here. Where can people get in touch with you? Because I know that they're going to want to follow you and hear more about selling if that's the stage that they're in. So where can they get in touch?
Yes. Best way is my podcast, Heart Centered Entrepreneur Podcast, if you want more funny stories. And also on Instagram, you can just DM me on Instagram and say, hey, I'm a real human and I'd love to send you a voice memo. Maybe you've never sent a voice memo and you want to practice sending a voice memo. I challenge you to send one to Jess or to myself. We would love to hear from you.
Yes, right. And we've been there. We like know how intimidating these first things can be. And so we're just like celebrating that with you, right? Like even if the voice shakes, we've been there, we get it. We've had that ourselves. So I just love what you said about that.
We'll be your guinea pig. We'll be your guinea pig. Send us your first voice memo. And then when you send one to a potential client, it'll be easier, right?
Yes, right. Thank you so much. I just feel so excited and encouraged by this conversation, and just know others listening will as well, especially if they're in those beginning stages where sales still feels so scary or they're just reaching that next level. So thank you.
Okay. I want to say one more thing. Is that okay?
Do it. Of course.
Okay. I have to say, like, if you've been following Jess and you're wondering, like, is she really this like happy, sweet of a human behind the scenes? Like the answer is yes. Like, like you really like how you come across like in your podcast and your content is just who you are to your core. You are so filled with integrity and kindness. And I just am grateful to be your friend, Jess. So I just wanted to let your podcast listeners know that like you really are the real deal.
Thank you. I'm feeling the same for you. So thank you so much.
If this episode resonated with you, I have 2 things you are going to love. One is a Bright Life workbook full of practices you can use to get clear on what your version of your brightest life looks like and fearlessly move towards it every day. And another is a Copywriter Starter Kit full of beginning steps to create a copywriting business that gives you the freedom to travel the world working from anywhere, to replace a corporate salary as your own boss, and to do creative work that lights you up every day. It's lessons I've learned in creating my own content business, and I'm excited to share it with you if you're curious about doing the same. I will link these in the show notes. I hope these serve you. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you back here next week as we all pursue our biggest, brightest lives together.